if I can make any request, is simply to not include any concept of decentralized finance into a bill which is centrally trying to govern well central controlling intermediaries.
Sam, what would you say? And Eric, are we talking just about the protocol, or are we talking about the user interface? I know Sam had some propositions around that, the user interface that connects to DeFi applications. Is that sort of one and the same to you?
Yeah, so Sam was clear that the protocols shouldn't be regulated, so that's good. But he was suggesting that interfaces to these protocols should be, and should be regulated similarly to how a centralized intermediary under the Bank Secrecy Act would be regulated. That is the big line that we need to say no on. So Sam, did I characterize that correctly, and what are your thoughts currently?
I think that's basically characterized right, and I think one thing I did take a little bit of, and by the way, I'm not sure you're wrong, to be clear, on this. Like, I think it's complicated right now. I don't fucking know what the right answer is. I think that, I think you did characterize, I think, basically right, and really appreciate that you sort of have put the thought into to make sure that you do that. I don't think everyone does that on either side. One thing that I just want to note is, I think not your first or your third, but your second description of what I think. You sort of said that, that you think it's important that decentralized applications not be regulated, and I think that they should be, or something roughly like that. And I think that your first and third versions did clarify roughly correctly what I think, but I think the second version sort of blurred a little bit the lines between a decentralized protocol and well, at the very least, and parentheses, centrally hosted GUI. And I just want to make it clear that I do draw a distinction there. And that I think a lot of the discussion on Twitter failed to remember that distinction, even if it was pointed out periodically. And so I want to make sure that we keep that pretty clear, and that we not sort of drift back and forth about what it was to. So I don't know for sure what the right thing to do is here. One thing I'll say is, well, first of all, we don't know what DCCPA will say. Don't have the final text yet. I do not think that we should be trying to hash out DeFi regulation in DCCPA. I think for most of the reasons you said, it's first of all, a lot of this is just permissionless code, and second of all, it's just a tricky area in general, and those are two recipes for Zafran trying to just quickly cobble together a comprehensive regime for DeFi. And I don't think, although we'll see, that the DCCPA is going to be aimed at trying to put together a regulatory framework for DeFi. I think and hope that it will be quite light touch on that side, and that to the extent that it does reference DeFi, at least in prior drafts that have been released, most of that was actually centered around something else, which was if there is a broker-dealer, if you have Schwab or something, and it wants to access DeFi for its customers, what should the principles around that be? And I will say that thing, I actually feel pretty good about. I mean, sorry, there are mixed parts of this, but I think overall, trying to create ways for highly regulated centralized financial intermediaries to interface with permissionless DeFi is probably good and healthy, and will open up a lot to DeFi, and that to that part, the devil's in the details there, and I don't know exactly what it's going to say, but I think it's potentially exciting and healthy. But putting DCCPA aside for a second, because it's I think in particular on the DeFi part, it's not clear exactly what it will say, and so it's going to be hard to hash out thoughts on it exactly. Maybe it's drilling to the place where I think we probably at least somewhat disagree, which is on the GUIs. Maybe I'll make it a few points here. The first is that there are some blurred lines here. And I'll acknowledge that some of these I've said, but I think it's sort of forgotten about those blurred lines and treated it as if there was crystal clear differentiation between different parts of this, which doesn't exist. But I think that the most important thing by far, and I'm interested if you disagree with this, but my instinct is that by far the most important thing is, or set of things is the following, that protocols can be permissionless, that on-chain code can be permissionless. Sorry, the only reason I'm saying can be here is that it's permissionless to write it, and obviously you could write on-chain code and put permissions in it. We shouldn't make that illegal, but that should be permissionless to write coding, and that could be permissionless, and that peer-to-peer transfers and payments can be permissionless. Those are things that I think are incredibly important and fundamental here, and I think that if those are violated, I think those are sort of the sacred things, because if those get violated, I think it just breaks the whole thing. It's and by the way, I think it's true, by the way, for centralized, or TradFi too. If you try to say everything is permissioned, no one could go to a shopping mall anywhere. You could not buy food. The world would just starve the next day. So, and I think that the result of that would be to effectively ban digital commerce and say that the only unregulated commerce can be physical unregulated commerce. So, but anyway, I want to check if you agree, not with my statement that I think that they should be permissionless, but with my claim that that's the most important thing by far.
What? I cannot. I just wanted to start with that gobbledygook. I just wanted to start with that. This man. Let me take a beat. I swear it seems as though he does not know about the blog post that he is said to have written himself it does not seem like he wrote it himself. From his answers in this interview, by the way, Bankless shows, definitely suggest everyone come out and take a look at it. Now, I decided to look at this because we just looked at, come on over to the channel, by the way. Let's just go over here and take a look here. We just looked at BitBoy versus Bankless, okay? All right, and it just inspired me to come over. All right, they were referencing this interview, and I was just like, okay, let me come over here and look at it. And before we even get into it, I'm going to tell you my opinion of the interview. And I want to know if you have the same opinion here of this interview. This interview seems as though Sam has no idea what is proposed in the bill that he is supposed to be talking about. That someone else wrote that blog post and that Sam Bankman-Fried did not write that blog post. Now, he agreed to this debate and he gets utterly destroyed. But there's a point in the debate, and we're going to listen to it at a pretty fast speed so we can get through it. Because otherwise it just hangs in this. You got to listen to it at a faster speed. At one point, Eric almost wants to laugh at him because it is clear he does not understand the talking points of the blog post that he was supposed to have written. It's clear that he doesn't understand them. To the point that they just eventually just say, okay, Sam, you wrote this. And they feed it to him literally. Like, Sam, you wrote this. What do you think? And I did not know a man could say nothing in so many different ways. He literally says nothing in the most ways humanly possible. It's amazing. All the different diversion tactics, he uses them. He deflects. He blames. He denies points that weren't made. What else does he do? He addresses points that weren't made. He reiterates already proven and already agreed upon points. He apologizes for things that weren't a problem. He literally does it. He does every possible way of saying nothing. The meat of it here for me is this DeFi regulation debate and why regulation now. These are the things that we're going to look at, and you just looked at the first part. In the first part, he says a whole bunch of things like, you're not wrong, I don't know what I'm talking about, but we're going to take it from here and go on. Let's just take it from here.
Yes, I think I agree with that. I take a little issue with your point about the current payment system not being permissionless, or being permissioned. Like today, it is absolutely permissioned. Then you can go with your credit card and buy something at the store. It's only because several intermediaries have your box ticked as approved, right? That is permissioned, and that can be taken away from people for wrongthink or for anything that some Orwellian government wants to do to them.
Oh, sorry. I think what I'd say is parts of it are permissioned and parts of it aren't. And I think it's totally arbitrary which parts are and aren't. And I think that I agree with you on the parts that are. So you can go to a store, you can pay with a credit card or with a dollar bill. And one of those is intermediated.
Cash is permissionless, right? That's the last bastion there.
That's right. And I think that and I do think that, by the way, I think you're making a good point here, which is when you go to a store, you buy a bagel, it costs 2% to a payment processor. And that's if you're allowed to buy the bagel, right? That's if you have connectivity to the financial system. So now you buy with.
His point was never that you go to this bagel store, you buy a bagel, and it costs 2%. He never said that. But that is a tactic that you use in conversation. You can say, oh, you made a good point there, and say what you're saying. I have a person who would do this to me all the time, and it was the worst and most terrible thing in the world. But um, that is a tactic. You'll say, "Oh, I think you make a good point there," or "I agree with you," and it has nothing to do with what the man just said. Nothing whatsoever. It was a little fast, so I'm going to go back just a little bit so y'all can hear it yourself.
But anyway, I want to check if you agree, not with my statement that I think that they should be permissionless, but with my claim that that's the most important thing by far.
Yes, I think I agree with that.
Cool.
I take a little issue with your point about the current payment system not being permissionless, or being permissioned. Like today, it is absolutely permissioned. That you can go with your credit card and buy something at the store is only because several intermediaries have your box ticked as approved, right? Yeah. That is permissioned, and that can be taken away from people for wrongthink or for anything that some Orwellian government wants to do to them.
Oh, sorry. I think what I'd say is parts of it are permissioned and parts of it aren't, and I think it's totally arbitrary which parts are and aren't. And I think that I agree with you on the parts that are. Like, sorry, you can go to a store, you can pay with a credit card or with a dollar bill, and one of those is intermediated.
Cash is permissionless, right? That's the last bastion there.
That's right, and I think that and I do think that, by the way, I think you're making a good point here, which is like when you go to a store, you buy a bagel, it costs 2% to a payment processor.
I think you're making a good point there. You go to no, he did not make that point. Go on.
And that's if you're allowed to buy the bagel, right? That's if you have connectivity to the financial system. So no, you can buy with cash either way, I guess, but cash is a pain. And why does it cost 2%? I think a lot of that is because you're trying to get gigantic companies to zoom in and say Alice wants to buy an everything bagel with cucumber. What do we think about that? And it's that's fine. And that's where that 2% is going. Effective, right?
Wait, what? Alice wants to buy an everything bagel with cucumber. Where does that what? Okay, so maybe he's just saying cucumber's actually ingredient. I don't know why the hell he added in cucumber, but let's just keep going.
It's and by the way, I think it's true. By the way, for centralized or TradFi too. If you try to say everything is permissioned, no one could go to a shopping mall anywhere. You could not buy food. The world would just starve the next day. So, and I think that the result of that would be to effectively ban digital commerce. And say that the only unregulated commerce can be physical unregulated commerce. So, but anyway, I want to check if you agree, not with my statement that I think that they should be permissionless, but with my claim that that's the most important thing by far.
Yes, I think I agree with that.
Cool.
My man is basically wanting to laugh at this dude at this point.
I take a little issue with your point about the current payment system not being permissionless, or being permissioned. Today, it is absolutely permissioned. That you can go with your credit card and buy something at the store is only because several intermediaries have your box ticked as approved, right? That is permissioned, and that can be taken away from people for wrongthink or for anything that some Orwellian government wants to do to them.
Oh, sorry. I think what I'd say is parts of it are permissioned and parts of it aren't, and I think it's totally arbitrary which parts are and aren't. And I think that I agree with you on the parts that are. Sorry, you can go to a store, you can pay with a credit card or with a dollar bill, and one of those is intermediated.
Cash is permissionless, right? That's the last bastion there.
That's right, and I think that and I do think that, by the way, I think you're making a good point here, which is when you go to a store, you buy a bagel, it costs 2% to a payment processor. And that's if you're allowed to buy the bagel, right? That's if you have connectivity to the financial system. So no, you can buy with cash either way, I guess, but cash is a pain. And why does it cost 2%? I think a lot of that is because you're trying to get gigantic companies to zoom in and say Alice wants to buy an everything bagel with cucumber. What do we think about that? And it's that's fine. That's where that 2% is going. Effective, right? That 2% is going because you're trying to mediate that transaction. And as you said, not everyone has a credit card, and credit cards don't always work. And so that 2% is a good case. That's a case where the payment does work. So I agree that a lot of the fact that payments are screwed up today is because of this. So anyway, in terms of the So it seems like we agree on what the most important things are and agree on what to do about those most important things. For where we disagree, here's my argument. And my argument might be wrong. I don't feel 100% sold by my argument here. I on balance, currently think it's correct. But basically what it is that
I don't feel 100% sold on my agreement. And then he keeps saying, I think we agree here. Those are all tactics.
it's given, given that is the most important thing, that smart contracts, that code, validators is another thing I should have thrown in that, which I assume you agree with, that it's very important that validators can be permissionless, or else again, you have like 10,000 random people running code to validate mathematical transactions, and also think about everything bagels with onions at 7-Eleven and Alice, which is insane.
What? When did validators come in here? Nobody said anything about validators. And then he starts going into Alice and validators with Alice. Oh my God.
Anyway, so and maybe I'll say just to clarify,
I have to go back over that part because it made absolutely no sense.
So I agree that like a lot of the fact that payments are screwed up today is because of this. So anyway, in terms of so it seems like we agree on what the most important things are and agree on what to do about those most important things. For where we disagree, here's my argument, and my argument might be wrong. Like I don't feel 100% sold by my argument here. I on balance currently think it's correct. But basically what it is that like it's like given that is the most important thing, that smart contracts, that code, validators is another thing I should have thrown in that, which I assume you agree with, that it's very important that validators can be permissionless, or else again you have like 10,000 random people running code to validate mathematical transactions, and also think about everything bagels with onions at 7-Eleven and Alice, which is insane. Anyway, so and maybe I'll say just to clarify, I make it explicit, website hosted on a centralized service by an American that targets financial products at American retail, back-ending onto DeFi, but is non-custodial. And so it's not custody, which I'm guessing is maybe where you would be drawing this line here.
No, non-custodial. So let's use a specific example, like a US-hosted, US-owned front end.
So at this point, he tries to at least. And you see the smile on this man's face. He is trying not to laugh at this man. So he's like, okay, let me just drill it down to just the bare bones and have him answer the bare bones question. Man, I cannot with this. I cannot. To me, what this shows is, okay, Sam Bankman-Fried did not write that blog post that was from his account, that was attributed to him. He didn't write it. And he didn't write it. And that Sam Bankman-Fried seems like a front man. He seems like a front man. BitBoy said in that whole Bankless interview with Bankless and BitBoy, he said that Sam's not a crypto guy. He's a finance guy. He seemed, and I saw some interview on MSNBC where it made Bankman-Fried look very, very good, but he was talking about finance stuff. And even in that interview, that was like all shaped up to make him look good. Like he was this guy is a crypto billionaire in 5 years. Even that interview on MSNBC, he still didn't look that great. He still looked shaky. And he was talking about finance stuff. Here, he looks terribly bad. Like, okay, there is no way in hell that this guy is truly leading Solana. There's no way in hell. There's no way that this guy is truly leading Solana. He is a front man. Which reminds me, speaking of front men, come check me out on Rokfin. We were talking about front men in this whole Kanye versus Lex thing. Definitely check out Sammy over there too. This Sammy. I won't say his name. And just in case like there's like an algorithm looking for his name or anything like that. But you guys come check him out over there. And come check out this whole Lex versus Ye thing. I wish I can get into the front men, but this is gonna have to be this part of my conversation is going to have to be on Rokfin about frontmen, because what it seems like is a lot of these people we think are leaders of certain platforms, certain record labels, certain things are just frontmen. And right now, Sam Bankman-Fried is looking like a huge just frontman. He's just paid to be the front face. That's it. Okay? So he's going to try to redirect the conversation. Eric's going to try to redirect it and get it down to bare bones so he can get what he needs out of Sammy in this conversation.
And so it's not custody, which I'm guessing is maybe where you would be drawing this line here.
No, non-custodial. So let's use a specific example, like a US-hosted, US-owned front end for Aave.
Yep, which...
And just so you guys understand, the question here is Sam's blog post said that front ends need to be regulated, which in itself is a tactic, because they're like, oh, look, we're not regulating DeFi. We're just regulating the GUI, the front end to it. But regulating that essentially regulates DeFi. You get it? So if you regulate the front end for the DeFi business, then they have to pay and get a license, and that said license costs like $500,000 or more. You've effectively killed DeFi in the US. And who gets to win for that? Old school bankers, traditional DeFi, traditional finance. So traditional bankers win. DeFi dies in America. America does not get the advantage and the permissionless advantage of crypto. So that's what he's trying to kind of zero in on. Like, okay, you didn't answer any of my questions. Let's try to make this simpler for you, so we can get what we need here. But as of this point, it's very clear to me that Sam Bankman-Fried is a front man. And it's really kind of sad to see. Solana's going to do what it does because it does what it does. You know what I mean? But Sammy Bankman-Fried is just the front man. There are other people behind him that are making real moves, it seems.
Products out of American retail back ending onto DeFi, but is non-custodial. And so it's not custody, which I'm guessing is maybe where you would be drawing this line here.
No, non-custodial. So let's use a specific example, like a US-hosted, US-owned front end for Aave.
Yep, which is, to be clear, in this case, US-hosted, US-owned, and offered to Americans. And offered to Americans is a vague word, but like I sort of want to say, like, isn't IP blocking the US or something like that? And like, I don't know, there's lots of interesting details here about that. But like,
the question is, should an American need a license to offer a front end for a back-end DeFi protocol? Like,
front end means GUI. If you're not an engineer, you might not know those terms. So front end is the front-facing thing. Front-facing thing is the GUI. It's always the front end of a program that you see. A back-end protocol means like the whole back-end business logic, the logic behind the GUI. So it's behind the GUI. So they're talking about needing a license for a front end, for a GUI. Okay. So front end is the GUI because it's the front-facing thing to the customer. The customer doesn't know anything about the code behind the GUI. All they know about is the front end, the GUI that they get to use to get DeFi or do DeFi or whatever, right? So just in case you're not aware of those terms.
like Aave.
Yeah,
Your blog said yes.
And sorry, just want to clarify.
Sorry, I just had to run it back for like the fourth time. Because I just realized you guys might not understand the word front end. and I want to get the whole thing of what he's saying in, and not, which means we'll probably have to hear Sam again. I'm sorry.
And so it's not custody, which I'm guessing is maybe where you would be drawing this line here.
No, non-custodial. So let's use a specific example, like a US hosted, US owned front end for Aave.
Yep, which is, to be clear, in this case, US hosted, US owned, and offered to Americans. And offered to Americans is a vague word, but like I sort of want to say, like, is it IP blocking the US or something like that? And like, I don't know, there's lots of interesting details here about that. But like,
the question is, should an American need a license to offer a front end for a backend DeFi protocol like Aave?
Yeah,
your blog said yes.
And sorry, just want to clarify, and it offered to Americans.
Correct.
So,
yeah, to Americans.
Yeah. I want to sidestep for a second, so we can get back to the question of whether I think, if I were dictator, that should be required. And rather answer a question of what policy should we be proposing and arguing for. And my core thought here is the following, which is that I claim that the most important thing here, at the end of the day, the most important thing.
He just said like 40 words and didn't just say anything. I just said, I want to just hear what he did. It was 40 words and he didn't say anything. Just listen to this.
And sorry, just want to clarify, and it offered to Americans.
Correct. Yeah, to Americans.
To Americans.
I want to sidestep for a second, so we can back to
sidestep.
The question of whether I think, if I were dictator,
that should be required.
And rather answer a question of what policy should we be proposing and arguing for. And my core thought here is the following, which is that I claim that the most important thing here, at the end of the day, important thing is that smart contracts, validators, payments remain open and free.
Again, back to validators. The question was not validators. The question was GUIs, and I'm not sure. And I think he understands that the questions are GUIs. I don't know. I'm not sure. I think he understands that. Definitely come check out the full interview, because he was saying that earlier. He's saying, okay, the question is GUIs. But right now he keeps coming back to the validators, which I'm struggling. I really think I'm struggling. I'm struggling to understand, is he doing this on purpose, or is he just... First of all, I do not think he wrote that blog. I 100% hands down do not believe he wrote that blog saying that the GUI should be regulated. Second, I'm not sure that he has enough knowledge about the crypto part to even answer the question. So first, he didn't write it. Second, I'm not sure if he has enough understanding about the crypto part to answer the question. Third, and this is the third part that I'm not sure of. I'm not sure that he's answering incorrectly on purpose, or because he doesn't understand, or because he doesn't want to be caught saying something that would support Eric's point. This is the part that I'm not sure about. But he continues to answer questions that are not asked, and he continues to repeat things that are not. Again, he continues to say something, talk for like 40 seconds or a minute and not say anything. So I'm not sure if this is on purpose. I'm not sure if it's because he doesn't have enough knowledge. I'm not sure if it's because he just doesn't want to agree to Eric's point. Either way, it kind of comes down to an interview that they never should have let him take, in my opinion. And Big Boy said that too, like that his his handlers, he wonders if he has handlers, and quote unquote saying that he has handlers again also puts him as a front man. Just basically says he's a front man, right? His handlers probably should have never let him take this, but going on.
And that the most important thing is that that gets protected at all costs. And that because of that, like, I am relatively willing to accept compromises if they preserve the things that I believe have the vast majority of the value for DeFi.
He's never said the things that he thinks has value for DeFi. So again, he said nothing. He said, I'm willing to accept compromises if the things agree with the things that I think have value for DeFi, but he never said what they were. He talked about validators, has nothing to do with the GUI. It's wow.
Plays a non-trivial part in my thinking here, which is that first of all, like, if my projection is, let's just expand out 10 years from now, and say, what will, empirically, in expected value terms, regulation look like?
He says expected value terms, and that is a finance term. That is not a crypto term. Again, kind of bolstering what Big Boy said. I'm agreeing with Big Boy again. He's spot on in this one. He's spot on on this. He's just spot on. I gotta give him his credit on this one. That's a finance term. It's not a crypto term. It should not even be used in this context. But in expected value terms, regulation will look like. That doesn't make any sense. That term does not apply in this situation. But
for DeFi in the United States, with all these caveats, again, Americans offering to Americans, blah, blah, blah. If I had to guess, I would guess in expected value terms that looks worse than it does in a world in which it's like validators, smart contracts, payment is totally free, but in which the centralized American-hosted targeting Americans of a GUI requires a particular license or something like that. Like, my projection is that that world is better than the expected value of what the world will be.
A burger dealer license. He said the expected value of a world where stuff is free to operate looks worse than the expected value of a world in a regulated crypto GUI. So he does come back to the GUI, but he puts it in terms of expected value, which does not make sense in the context of this conversation. So I can't. Just one more time, and I don't even think I can make it through this. I don't even think I can do the rest of it for y'all. I don't know. We'll see. I can't.
And that plays a non-trivial part in my thinking here, which is that first of all, like, if my projection is, let's just expand out 10 years from now, and say, what will empirically, in expected value terms, regulation look like for DeFi in the United States, with all these caveats, again, Americans offering to Americans, blah, blah, blah. If I had to guess, I would guess in expected value terms that looks worse than it does in a world in which it's like validators, smart contracts, payment is totally free, but in which the centralized American-hosted targeting Americans of a GUI requires a broker-dealer license or something like that. Like, my projection is that that world is better than the expected value of what the world will be. Maybe I'll just pause for a second there and ask you, do you agree with that statement about the relative expected values?
I think the tendency of the regulators is to make the world a darker place, no matter what. Now, it's up to non-regulators. It's up to you, Sam. It's up to people in the industry to highlight the reasons, whether ethical, moral, legal, why those people should not be imposing the controls that they want to impose. And I agree that the protocol being immutable is the most important thing, but I kind of feel like you're starting to compromise far too early. It just is in the same way that, like, if we agree that the heart or the brain is the most important part of the body, we would not so readily surrender our arms and our legs to be chopped off just because the heart may be arguably more important, right? Like let's keep the whole being here. Let's not invite in this kind of restriction. And if they force the restriction, then they'll force it, and history will be the judge of that. But let's not be the ones who invite that in upon ourselves.
So, I totally hear you. I want to make an empirical point, which it might be wrong, and if this claim is wrong, then I change my position on some of this. But my empirical claim is the following. Maybe I'll sort of like lay out my logic here. Step one, most important thing, validators, etc. Step two, I predict that in expected value terms, that compromise is better than what we will get. Maybe it'll be better, maybe it'll be worse, but like it's better than what we're expected to get because it preserves the most important thing, and I'm not 100% sure that that will be preserved. I really hope it will be. Step three, I think we have to fight to make sure it gets preserved. I think that's the most important fight. And then step four, and I think this is an important and non-trivial stuff that I might be wrong about, but which is very relevant for my thinking on this, is my sense is that it is much more effective at getting what you want the most if you come to the table with a stance which is immediately recognized as willing to compromise and reasonable. And that I'm not yet making a statement about what matters, what the right thing to do is, but that like my belief is that like if you come to the table in DC and ask for exactly everything that you want as your first ask in a very forceful way, you will not get what you want, and that you will not be taken as seriously, and that the way to maximize the odds of getting what you want the most is to express a willingness to compromise on the things that are less important. That is my belief.
That, in principle, that's absolutely right. You're not wrong on that principle, but you're
He is trying so hard not to just straight laugh in this man's face. And he basically just, and this is another communication tactic. You say something to someone like, okay, something that's easily agreeable. And it's like, yes, I agree on that. It's like, okay, water's wet. But he didn't say it in a way that was water's wet. He kind of tucked it into a conversation where he said absolutely nothing and said, okay, water's wet. Like, oh my God, I don't even know how to tactfully deliver it in the way that Bankman-Fried tactfully delivered that. Like, this man should be like a politician. He very tactfully filibustered that conversation with something that makes, oh my God, this is so hard for me, y'all. I swear to God, this is so hard for me. I don't know how this guy did it. I really don't know how he did it. One more. No, I'm not going back. I'm just going to keep going forward.
Sacrificing far too much from our position here. Let's be pragmatic for a second. Forget all principles and everything. If DeFi front ends, catering to Americans, need to be licensed, DeFi in America dies. It dies. People will not use DeFi through licensed front ends because it will simply look like CeFi. There will be no meaningful distinction.
So
that can't be sacrificed.
Well, I think I disagree with that, but I more strongly disagree with at least one of the things you said, even if I don't know which one. Like, in other words,
if I don't know which one.
I don't know that you can simultaneously think what you just said and also think that by far the most important thing is that validators, etc., remain permissionless. Like, because
I think I disagree with what you said, but I don't know which one. And simultaneously, if you think what you just said, oh my God, oh my God, I can't. I cannot. Oh my God, y'all. Oh my God. I'm gonna try. I'm just gonna try to listen to that one more time without my brain exploding. It's like literally, I don't know if you guys code, but there's this thing called an if-else statement, all right? You could say, so if something's one, if something's two, and then else. And if you give the computer something like, okay, like it says, if something's one, if something's two, and then You just have that if one, if two, and the computer encounters three, it just crashes, right? Because you didn't handle the case where it was like, okay, if it's one or if it's two or if it's something else. This is almost what he is doing to my brain right now, but except it's coming back and it's eating itself like an Ouroboros. My brain is literally eating itself because these things are so contradictory what he's saying that I can't. I don't know how this guy survived. I'm just going to listen to this one more time and hope that my brain doesn't explode on you guys on air live or recorded.
People will not use DeFi through licensed front ends because it will simply look like CeFi. There will be no meaningful distinction.
So
That can't be sacrificed.
Well, I think I disagree with that, but I more strongly disagree with at least one of the things you said, even if I don't know which one. Like, in other words, I don't know that you can simultaneously think what you just said and also think that by far the most important thing is that validators, et cetera, remain permissionless. Like, because what you're saying right now is you lose the whole thing if you give up permissionless front ends. And, but then you also said that you get most of the value if you have, like, permissionless backends. And so I think I'm now confused about which of those you think.
He did not say either of what he just said. And the first part was so freaking convoluted. I'm sorry, y'all. Y'all gonna have to watch the rest of this. But it's very clear the Sam Bankman-Fried is a front man. He is not the leader of FCX. He is just a front man that is a leader on paper. He is not the leader of Solana. He's just a front man that is a leader on paper. Maybe he might have skills in finance. I am not sure. But what I can tell you for a certainty, I think, and now I'm talking like this dude. Well, I can tell you, I'm pretty confident that he did not write that blog post, and I'm pretty confident he. Now this part, I'm pretty confident he didn't write that blog post. Now, what I don't know is if he knows what this guy is talking about with the GUIs. He knows. And he's deflecting it on purpose. Or if he doesn't have enough crypto knowledge to understand what he's saying. So either he doesn't have enough knowledge to understand what he's saying. He knows and he's purposely deflecting it. Or 3, he just doesn't have any clue whatsoever. And that's the part that I wonder about. I really wonder about that. But either one of those options still leads back to, I think that he's a front man. I don't think he wrote it. And I don't think he's the smartest person in the room he's cracked up to be. And he is also not the rags to riches story. Rags to riches stories, those are another thing that we're always fed that turns out to be absolutely false. So it's the rags to riches stories, and then these front men that were thrown up like they're leaders of this, or, you know, they own this record label, and it's completely false. I cannot anymore with this. I hope I don't come off as a dick to y'all, but I can't anymore with this circular speech. That's what it is. The circular speech. It literally grinds my gears in a way that I cannot quite possibly express to you. I would love to hear what you guys think in the comments. I just can't anymore with this. But you know what? I really hope Eric Voorhees made the best arguments. He phrased everything in a perfectly sane and amazing manner. And I hope that Sam Bankman-Fried doesn't get his way, or excuse me, I hope that Sam Bankman-Fried's handlers do not get their way. Sam Bankman-Fried, I hope that the people who are actually behind Sam Bankman-Fried do not get their way with America and crypto. So, I don't know. Let me know what you guys think. And I'm going to try to woosah over here. Just woosah and just wash this out of my brain. Because, wow. Whoo boy. Y'all can check out some of my past videos here. Thank you so much for watching. I'm out of here. Peace.